About
Us?
yeah, let's talk about what your team learned from obviously a really close battle for 3/4 plus with North Dakota State, and then what they can carry into this week's game at Murray.
Well, there's a lot of, that was a very good football team. I was afraid of what I would see in live, because all of a sudden, well, maybe, on tape, they're not quite this, they're not quite that. And you got to remember they stepped their game up, and they, like I thought they would. And unfortunately, they look pretty good. And they're a really good looking team, and they did a good job. And but I think it's just for some of our younger guys to watch Dan Sopkowitz. I just told them, hey, just strength training for that matter. Just a little. It's not little. It's a huge thing what we do. Obviously, lifting weights. Everybody thinks it was for linemen, linebackers, tight ends, strength training. Maybe running back. But no, receivers and DBs. They have to be strong. That was a one-handed strong. And he had to hold him off. He was getting held, and he's still. And then what I appreciate about the officiating was they let us play, and I would much rather have that game than any other game. I mean, just let the players decide it, and that's what they did. I thought, usually, coach will sit up here and complain. I thought it was a really well officiated game, and there's little things you miss here and there. That's just human nature. It's part of the game, but. They did a great job. They let us. Both teams played. Both teams would have had 2 or 3, 2 penalties each, and that was about it. And so it just tells you they let us play, and that's what should happen. And like that catch, that was a great catch, but you have to be strong. You have to be able to lift weights. You don't get that way just by running routes. Or getting older. You have to lift weights and train. And I brought that up to particularly our young receivers. We got good young receivers here. And some good young DBs as well, and our secondary is still growing, and I said, well, you want to look like those guys. They're good players, and they're put together, and they train. You can see that, and so our guys do too. But it's just you got to keep grinding and keep going that direction, and you'll look like them someday. We've had a great looking kids here too, and we have them right now. But I think that's one thing you take away a game like that. But the Sopkowitz performance I thought was really really good, and the idea of strength being involved in football, he was a great example. There's a couple examples where he had to go up and really battle and 50-50 ball, and he came down with it. He does that a lot, but this game especially because these guys are highly skilled. There was a throw Tommy made. I don't know if you remember this. He threw it to Scotty Preston over the middle. If you saw that from the end zone, I don't know how he fit that ball in there. And I talk about split seconds and square. Where are you going to find your split seconds and your inches? It's not feet, it's inches. And split seconds. Where are you going to find those? How are you going to develop those? It's your effort, it's your intensity, it's your ability to watch tape and anticipate, and it's your technique and how you do it. And those linebackers were breaking the ball just how you coach it. Beautifully breaking the ball, and it was just a dart. And then Scotty had to have the skill to be able to catch the ball with his vision being blocked. It was an amazing throw. It was a great play by them, and it was just that much. It was just barely missed from being knocked down. And I said, this is high-level football. Yeah. It's as good as it gets. You won't see a throw window like that in the NFL. It's just like that's the NFL. That's what it looks like. There's windows are like this big, when the better the players, the better the teams, the better the matchups. So the margin of error is very very slim, and that's what we learned. So I preach that a lot, and having the background that I had, and I was fortunate enough to be in a great league for a long time, and this is a great league as well, and played these guys several times. But Big Ten football is good as well, and you see these top flight athletes. These are the kind of things you have to do, and when you think about how you train in the off season, it's particularly really good for your young players. You could pull out many things in the game where here this and this is why you have to just those little things that add up to being big plays, and they were big plays in the game. So it was really fun for a while, but wish we could have pulled that out. But you know, the one thing I heard our bench say, our guys, boy, I hope we get them again. I said, well, so do I. but you're gonna have to have some. There's 7 teams. They're gonna have something to say about that here in the next 7 weeks. So we're on to the first one here this weekend. So we gotta worry about us now. But good question. Sorry for the long answer, but that was a really good question actually. We learn a lot.
Coach, for these new people here, their MO is to run power football in the fourth quarter, and they couldn't run power football on you, so they went to the outside zone.
They went, yeah, outside zone.
Do you think there was a little bit of your overall running back coach was their running back coach now? Do you think he knew something and they had that plan?
Well, yeah, you know, we're
did.
hard to run the ball on the
Yeah.
side, you know, and but you know, they've run the outside zone. I'll be honest with you, they have run it all year. It's a lot more than they have. You know, the A-gap power is what you're talking about. You know, they skip pull and they have. Sorry, you probably don't know. Skip pull means that the guard skip pulls. He keeps his spirit. He just slides over and then gets downhill. Or regular pull, he turns aside and then get up the field. So the skip pull is for the A-gap. That's why he just slides over and gets vertical. That's been their play. They haven't run it quite as much. They still do it, but they didn't. Against us, they play no pull power, what we call duo, and that's what you do in the NFL. The 3-4 teams. You don't pull anybody. It's just zone blocking.
Yeah, zone block.
We call it duo. It's no pull power. So that's been their play that they've really gone to. But they went to the outside zone in the fourth quarter. We struggled with it a little bit. You know, we got stuck on blocks a couple times and just didn't get off the blockers. It was really simple. It was just technique stuff that you know we didn't do a great job of on that particular play. But you know, our kids played. You know, I can't fault them on their effort. They played really really hard and they're physical. You know, our guys are physical, and you know that's what we preach here. And we just had to execute a little bit better in a few situations and it just comes down to a couple things. I mean, it's just bang, bang, and then the game's over. So it's just like that. And you have to, in a game like that, you have to be on point and you have to execute, you know, and you can't have a lull there in execution, which we had a couple of runs. We cut loose and we had them in 3rd and long. You know, I think I told Randy this at the press conference. You know, that's what hurt us really bad. We had, you're only going to get them 3rd and long one time, you know, in a drive. So you get them 3rd and long, you got to get off the field.
Right.
And twice we didn't, and both were touchdowns. Next time they just kept driving down the field, and they got a touchdown. That is your chance. It was 3rd and 8, 3rd and 7, 3rd and 9. You got to get off the field. Find a way to get off the field. Whatever it is, get off the field. And we just twice, actually 3 times. One was a 3rd and 4, but the other ones were long yardage. When you get them in 3rd and long, you go, thank God. So you got to get off the field, and we weren't able to do that on 2 scenarios, and it cost us a touchdown in both cases. So if we get off on those, you get off the field in those 2 situations, all of a sudden the game's different. You know,
Right.
And you know, first thing Dan Sobkowitz is, just so you know, he's unbelievable. You can't ever give the guy a compliment. If you give him a compliment, he just, well, yeah, but I sucked at this, and it was just terrible. I said, oh my God, kid. I mean, I get it, but come on, played a great football game. He did. He dropped the pass, which he doesn't do, and he had a slant that, you know, if I say, hey, you played really well, I'm really proud of you, how hard you played, you made some great plays. He goes, yeah, but it cost us a touchdown. He goes, if I would have caught that ball, I'd been inside the 15-yard line, you know, we wouldn't have to go for it on 4th down. He was right. He was right. And I used that, and I was going to be I had to kind of tread lightly in front of the team because he played so well, but I was going to use that as an example. Hey, as good as this guy played, he dropped a ball that was a 1st down catch. Yes. You got to catch that ball. I mean, you just got to. And he knows that, and he knows it better than anybody. He's played against these guys, and I can't drop that ball. I mean, that's a 1st down, and then it's been down inside the 15-yard line. We're going to get points out of that. and you never know where the game goes. So there's a lot of things like that, and but they made those plays, and we did not.
Right.
And that's what I mean by execution. And there's 100 others. I mean 100, but there's probably 15, 20 other opportunities we had to. We just do a little something here, a little something there. The play goes our way instead of their way, but it was a great football game, and for a while there, it was really competitive, and I was impressed with them. I mean, I didn't know if play. I've seen them so many times. You just think, God, they can't be better than they were last year. Or they are.
Yeah.
They're better than they were last year.
Yeah.
I hate to tell you that they're a lot better when you see them live, and that was the first time they got up for us, and we knew they would. We knew that was going to happen.
They knew they had to get up for you.
Yeah, well, it was the best. We were the best team they played up until that time. There'll be a pretty good team coming here soon. South Dakota State, they're undefeated, and that'll be an interesting game. And then Youngstown looks to be a really good team too, and Southern Illinois. Southern Illinois's got a really good offense, so it'll be interesting. But long story short, it was a good game. So
Your kids can get better though and learn from that. And if you do get an opportunity to play them again, I think of when 2019 we went up there in the playoffs. We didn't have a quarterback. We lost by 6 points.
Yeah.
And got a touchdown call back on an inadvertent whistle.
Yeah.
Could have won the game.
Yeah.
So it'd be good to play them again.
And really didn't have a game like that. So they came in here and whooped us.
Yeah,
I mean, that one may be the worst ass kicking I took from those guys. I'm just saying, wow. They came in here and it was a no doubter. When they left the field, whew, that was brutal. We went back up there 2 months later, and it was a completely different game. And that's football for you. It's hard to beat a good team twice in a season. So, but they do it in the NFL. You have to. But we don't see that much in college football. But unless you get in the playoffs, sometimes you do. But we'll see. You can't think about all that. I guess we're about Murray State.
What about Murray, Coach? With that quarterback?
Good player. Yeah, he's a good young guy. He's a coach's son. His dad is I think his dad is the offensive coordinator, if I'm not mistaken. And he looks like a coach's kid. He makes good decisions. He goes. He looks a lot older than he really is with his skill. Not necessarily his skill, but his decision making. He makes good decisions, and he knows what he's doing. And they're plenty good enough to beat us. I tell you that. Don't let the record fool you.
Right.
They're pretty. They got some good backs, tough backs. A little better up front, I think. They're physical and they'll get after you up front on offense and both sides of the ball. And so they got a good team. I mean, I think it's.
They only had one home game.
Yeah, this is the second one.
Yeah.
So interesting.
So trying to convince your young team how to match the intensity they brought Saturday night to this Saturday night. Has that been a point of emphasis so far this week?
Well, yeah, it's I pulled off some clips. I don't do it every game, but I pulled some clips off that were some interesting clips of our offensive linemen. If you remember the first rushing touchdown, you probably didn't notice, but all three of them, one does that, another one does that, another one does that. Just the motion behind. I said, you guys never do this. Why don't you do this every Saturday? And the effort of pushing the pile, and I got after him in there. I showed him some clips of who you're playing. This is what your friends on defense are watching right now. Guys coming in. It was a third and short, and all bam, bam, bam. All these three linemen just shoving the power forward into a touchdown. Well, at 3rd and 1, that's what Pope gets in there and hits a guy. Brandon Smith gets up off the ground and pushes the pile. And the effort it took to shove him another inch to get a first down. And I said, watch the next play. The yo-yo route by Sopwith scores.
Beautiful.
Touchdown. That's why, because you guys, your effort, and your excitement to play. And why can't this be every Saturday? You only have 12 of these right now. That's what you're guaranteed, and hopefully more. But right now you're guaranteed 12. Why isn't the motion like this every Saturday? Because it doesn't matter where you're playing, but they were into it for sure. But I think they're getting there. Hopefully we do it again.
That was a great route by Sopwith, though. That
Yeah, he's a really good
right
player.
towards the back.
You know, I think he made it pretty clear he's a pretty good player.
He was the best one on the field that night. He was
I
better
thought
than
so.
theirs.
Well, I don't know about that, but I think he
I think
is.
so.
I'm not going to say it. You can say that, but I think he's ours, and I think he's a really good player.
Best player.
And I think he's one of the best players in the league, in my opinion. And I take
Or you
Dan.
can't-
I take Dan Sopwith every
Yeah, he
day.
had one good play, and that was a backup corner.
Yeah.
It was a backup corner.
Yeah, our guy was cramping a little bit, so they take him out of the game. But yeah, he's a good player. A lot of NFL people have been through here.
I would think
He's got their
they'll be looking
attention.
at that- They'll be looking at that film. on
They
both
will,
sides.
but even before that, he's played. He's had a lot of really good games here. But what else you got?
What about Murray on defense, Coach? What do they?
A little bit of little under some 3-4 stuff. They'll get a little over on nickel downs. So they're multiple. Their coordinator was an NFL player, I think, at one time, and is a good coach. So they kind of give you some different looks. Secondary is pretty, basically the same. There isn't a whole lot of different coverages that go along with their fronts. They try to. What you should do is keep it simple for those guys, and they look well coached, and they run and hit you, and they play hard. They're physical and they're sound in what they do. They're well coached. So I think they're going to be a good football team. I know the numbers. I've heard some of the numbers, but I really don't look at numbers. I look at how they play on
There
tape.
you
And I don't really pay attention to numbers, and I don't see some of the numbers on tape. I think they're better than that, and I think they're like a lot of us. They're just feeling their way out for the first 4 or 5 games and seeing who they are.
They got a lot of new players, don't they? My God,
They sure do.
80
Yeah,
or something.
it seems like it. I don't remember some of these guys from last
Right.
year, so I assume they're all new. And yeah, I'm pretty sure they are. Some of them.
New guys.
Yeah.
Coach, it's a unique situation. I mean, North Dakota State just came here second year in a row. You're going back down there for
Right.
second year in a row. What can the guys that are back from last year learn from that game, which was a very good offensive game, but they would not go away. Murray State made it very difficult.
And their quarterback was a real pain in the butt. He was athletic and he could throw it, and he had a really good football game, and he ran the ball pretty well. And he had a couple good runs in the game. They're not afraid to run it. They like to run the football, and they're balanced, but they can throw it. But they like to run the football. You can tell that, and they're very good at it. And I like their backs. Their backs are tough, physical, downhill guys, and they're typical Valley running backs. You're going to have to get him on the ground, get a lot of hats on him, and fit correctly, because they'll like we did last week. We didn't fit a couple runs right, and we gave us some long X plays in the running game, which we don't do very often, but we did in that game. So, they're pretty good.
Tell your guys to keep the horse in the stable.
Yeah.
So he's not running after
Yeah,
touchdowns.
yeah. We kind of wore that horse out last year. We played pretty good up until the fourth quarter, and the horse goes, "God, can you stop these guys?" This one,
They got a horse.
yeah, the horse almost died on us. He was running so much. Yeah.
Ray got a photo with
Yeah, no, but
Yeah, he did, didn't he?
yeah. Well, we'll see. That's why we play.
Coach, sort of going off a point you made earlier, last Saturday you went for 2 on 4th down. Do you think that aggressive playing style is going to continue against Murray?
You mean going for fourth down?
Yeah.
I like going for fourth down. I don't want to get a bad rap on that. I think
Modern day football, you have
Yeah,
to.
I do like going for it on 4th down. We did it against Missouri State a couple of years ago quite a bit. Went for 2 a few times. Especially early in my tenure here, I felt it was necessary for us to do that to win games. Now, the game we played Saturday, I will say this. Going into the game, that was the big issue. Were they going to be that suffocating defense where you couldn't gain an inch, on a 4th and 1? I don't think that was the case. I thought we could move them, and I thought, I'm not saying we move them very far, but we could move them enough to get a first down, or we could throw it. And we had a touchdown, and we just, the coaching staff on offense took the blame. He said we should run that play a little bit more. We did, the back was just a hair. He hesitated, and he can't hesitate. He should have gone and you abort the fake and you go block the end, and he just kind of didn't do that fast enough, and he was in his face, and he would have walked in. I mean, if he just did that, he would have walked in, and he just couldn't get the ball off. I mean, he got it off, but it was really way late. So just working on those things, and that was a touchdown. So yeah, we're always thinking about it. I would tell you, when you get in the field goal range, we have a field goal kicker, in my opinion, who's from Murray State. He's going back home, and he's from up here though, and I think he can hit field goals. So it might be a little different. I might take the points if it depends on the score of the game, how we've been playing, how they're playing defense, how we're playing defense, and I felt against the North Dakota State, I think you would agree, that we had to score touchdowns to win that game. I mean, we get the ball in the red zone. You gotta go for it, because you're not going to win this game kicking field goals. It's just not going to happen, in my opinion, because you can see how fast they could score, and so that played into that. But yeah, I don't have, that's always on the table. It just the circumstances. You kind of get a feel for your team. Some days, I don't think we can make an inch. Just some days, you get a bad. I tell the players, you want to give the play caller. I used to be a play caller. I let our coordinators make calls, but I can override if I want. But if I want to do that, I should kick the play calling back. And I don't. One of the two of us is unnecessary then, right? I mean, so that's why you have coordinators. And having calling plays for that long, you don't want to obviously get in the head of the play caller. But I think Tony's very comfortable going for it on fourth down, and hey, coach, I got to play for you. It's just up to you, That's all. So I think he's very, very comfortable doing that. So that'll always be on the table. It just depends on the score of the game, the circumstances of how we're playing, how they're playing on defense and their offense. If we feel we have to score touchdowns, we're going to go for it, But it just depends. But yeah, we will be aggressive.
Can you touch a little bit on ball security, because there was a couple of fumbles in the last game?
Yeah, we lost one that was big. That's an interesting topic you bring up, because we used to talk about this at Purdue, and I remember our boss sitting there, and we are in the year we ran a run in the Rose Bowl. We had a little issue with fumbling. He goes, I don't know if you want to bring that up very loud, because the more you emphasize it, the worse they get. I mean, and there is some, and he's right actually, because then they get really overconscious. Yeah. They carry the squeeze the crap out of the ball. You know what I mean? And it just you make them so self-conscious of it. Don't fumble, don't fumble. Oh, he fumbled. I can't fumble. I fumble. So it's just that kind of catch the ball, because the ball, drop it. And it's just, I don't know how that psychology works, but there's a fine line. But yes, we do work on ball security and everything we do. And I do not like the ball on the ground. Thursday especially, Thursday practice, I said no balls on the ground on one side of the field, offense. Offense, they can grade themselves. If the ball's on the ground, throw or run, someone's wrong. Either the pass wasn't on target, the ball was dropped by the receiver, the ball was late getting there. Well, obviously, if it's a ball handling issue, it's the first thing we do in practice. If you've been to our practices, that's the first thing with porn bros, we go out and run ball handling. Because that's the most important thing you do, from snap to handoff. It's really, really important, especially in the gun. So we work a lot on that. So I really don't know how much we can emphasize even more. And our ball handlers, they do drills with guys pawing at the ball. They have all those fancy drills to try and knock the ball out. And we try to do that on defense, and we let our defensive players do that. Some coaches don't like that because they're afraid of injury. Like if you punch or under or over, you might hit somebody and hurt them, but I really don't care because I do care. I don't want guys to get hurt, but it's good for them to have the ball. So we're pretty aggressive with that in practice. So we do it all the time. I don't know much more. And Ted, you're there. I don't know much more we can do. To try to. And sometimes the guy puts his hat right on the football, he just hits it perfectly and comes out, or they punch it just perfectly. But yeah, you're right. I think you do have to. Hey, we understand. There were 2 turnovers in the game. The one was non-issue because it was the last drive and he just threw it up trying to make a play, the pick. But the one fumble was critical, and we were going down to take a 9-0 lead. We were moving the football. We moved the ball the first 2 series pretty good, and then the fumble. And I'm not gonna call the player out because he's a good kid. He knows he knows he can't fumble, and he feels bad enough. There's nothing I can tell him that's gonna help him. You just get high and tight.
You didn't realize how hard he's gonna get hit.
Yeah, he get hit pretty hard.
That's what I-
And sometimes, when you're running with the football, particularly backs more than sometimes receivers, but it's more backs because they get used to it and they're going to try to squirm and twist and turn, and they really open themselves up to fumbles. And the guy who's really susceptible for fumbles, this is what I did as a coordinator in defense, is I call it ball disruption tape. So I get a cut up of all their balls that got disrupted, either blocked at the line of scrimmage, blocked, broken up in play or fumbled or interceptions. And we watch it, so we find who the fumbler is. And all of a sudden, it's pretty obvious. You watch, it's 31. He's had the ball on the ground 5 times in the season. We're gonna go after him. And every time, and that's when our guys are all, you gotta be ball conscious. And but those guys, you're gonna have to fix it because they know, and they're gonna try. You put it on tape. It's like when you don't protect a punter or kicker, and it comes from this let's say it's this B gap. Guess where they're coming? They're coming on that B gap. So if you're responsible for the B gap, you just invited a lot of work because everybody sees it, and they're going to keep testing you and testing you and testing you and testing you until you stop it. So, and once you stop it, you're good. But if you guys come up with a really good idea when it comes to that, let me know. I really don't. We do it from day one, and we put the ball on the ground a couple times. So, what else you got?
Anything else? All right, Coach.
All right, thank you for coming.